Please leave your name and your LinkedIn's, get to know each other, let us know where you're from, connect with each other. If I can have cameras on, I would appreciate that. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much, Chloe. Thank you so much, Josh. This is what I love to see, guys. How do you want people to remember you if your camera's on? I don't know what you look like. So I need to see your faces. It's so nice to see you again, Chloe, by the way. Thank you so much, Joshua. I'm gonna start off with dropping my name on LinkedIn. This is the time to connect with everybody else. And we're gonna start off in like around 10, 13, 10, 15. But guys, drop your names, drop your LinkedIn's, and connect with each other. I love to see these guys. Thank you so much for turning your cameras on. Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you so much, Millie. I love it to see you again and appreciate you. Thank you so much. But yes, guys, drop your LinkedIn, drop your names, and we'll be starting off in around 4 minutes. Thank you so much, Celestial. Thank you so much, Raphael. It's lovely to see everyone's faces. Great. Oh, no worries, you're cooking. That's fine. Nice to have you here. It's all that matters. I'm here supported today by David, and David was also part of the internship cohort last year. So you'll be here to learn so much from him as well about his experience as well. I'm gonna let him introduce himself when we start off, but I just want you to let you know who's with me as well today. So thank you so much everybody for coming on time. My name is Demilade. I'm founder associate here at Beyond Education, and I'm here supported today by David. And today is the application session. Today's session is all about supporting you guys with a career coach on how best to stand out in the application process. But before we start, I'm going to hand it over to David. He's going to tell you a bit more about Octopus Energy, about the internship process, the program he was on, and just if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll be able to answer those questions before the career coach starts with application prep. Thank you so much, David.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay. My name's David, David Oyatunde. I was also part of the internship scheme, which happened last year with the Octopus Energy Services specifically, which entails the sale of heat pumps in general. So I was an energy specialist in the aspect of heat pumps, which are a renewable heating system for properties. So that was the section that I was in, and best way I'll describe it was basically being like a salesperson in terms of the working environment and the experience I gained from the internship. And one of the best things that happened in regards to the experience for me was that there wasn't really like a different section in terms of how the process was done. It was more or less like you were working with the actual energy specialists, which were amongst you. So the experience was actually hands-on, and there really wasn't anything different that I was doing that my mentor was doing or my manager was doing as well. So the experience was really good. And I got to meet a lot of people, gain confidence from the experience, develop communication skills, and selling products as well, which is really motivating for anybody in regards to how you build yourself up and gain experience in an actual company, because there's a big difference between working in like a retail organization and working for a company and progressively making money for a specific organization. So I would say the experience was really good. I met a lot of people, students like myself in different departments as well. And, is one thing that I would recommend for everyone else that's currently in the call right now. So, yeah,
Thank you
is
so
the
much for that, Dave. So you guys can drop in your questions in the chat now. But there's some questions already that we had. So I'm gonna just read some of them out and then we can just answer them before we have the career coach come in. So one of the questions is it what are the most common errors applicants make during the application process? So David, what do you think from your side are the common errors that applicants make?
um in regards to like the common errors that I feel like applicants make, um thankfully during my experience, I spoke to um a talent acquisition placement student, internship um student as well. And I asked her like what is the specific thing that Octopus is looking for, because Octopus has different sections. Basically, there's Kraken, there's Octopus Energy, there's Octopus itself. So she worked for Kraken in regards to like the technical side of Octopus basically. And I asked her, what is it that Octopus or Kraken is looking for when it comes to when you're applying or your career aspirations? And she simply said, when you are applying for a role, you more or less have to stay tailored to what you're applying to. And you shouldn't really deviate from what you're applying to, because sometimes you might feel as though certain experiences would really apply to a certain role that you're trying to get. But if it doesn't really relate to what you're trying to get, it doesn't add any value to the company. So they more or less wouldn't consider um, the one thing that you think is going to be really beneficial for you in terms of like, let's say your CV, or when you're writing the application letter. And from what I've seen, the experience, my personal experience during my application period was that you didn't have to drop in a CV. You'd have to write a just like a reflection or like a letter just to express your interest, basically. Nathaniel said, is there a preference in age when applying for the internship? No, there's not. During my experience, there were different age structures, like different people of different ages, people outside university, people within university, people that have freshly graduated as well. So I'm not sure how this year's going to be taken, like in regards to what they specifically want in students. But from what I've seen, they're more or less not that strict in regards to what they want. So
Definitely. As long as you fit the criteria and as long as your application is good, there is no discrimination when it comes to the age. Octopus is very open. So once you're 18, if you're a student, career changer, it's open. You just need to make sure your application is solid. Is there any
um,
framework smoothly combining our work experience, skills, and passion? We'll get onto that once the career coach comes here. How is the application process? Are there online assessments? How many interviews for the internship application until we get an offer? So as far as I know, and you can jump onto this, David, the application process is quite, I would say, quite easy. I think it's just a cover letter and a CV. And then I don't think there's any online assessment. I think it's just then an interview based. I think that happens afterwards. But the entire process is quite seamless and quite easy to go through as well. What would you say, David?
um, just to answer the question and obviously what you're saying as well, it's seamless. Like from what I've seen, I applied for my role and I had the phone call, which was like a confirmation to basically know if I was interested, and then asking me, why do I want to basically become like a sales specialist in regards to the role. And, after that, then we did like a interview in the office and then a presentation. And yeah, that was all I did in regards to mine. But I did speak to one of the placement students in Kraken, which was like a front end engineer, and they did like a test, which was like a basically they assigned the task to them and they submitted it, and or I think later on, I'm not sure, but I'm I could basically assume that they had to do like an in-office interview to just finish up the process basically.
Yeah,
So
I think it depends. It depends on what department you go through. I was in the origin department. I was in energy markets, and once I went through when I had the call, I had to do a little task. But it wasn't anything that easy. They were able to guide you. It was literally like an Excel sheet of like different numbers I had to put in. And then I had to basically explain my answers, explain my process, and see them on another call. But yeah, it depends on what team you're going into. But they will definitely give you an oversight into how the application process would look like. It's different for everybody, but there's transparency and visibility of how that would look like. There was another question that was sent, and I want your opinion on this, David, would be, are there opportunities to connect with people within the organization? So not just people in your team. Maybe if you go for a talk and you actually lack flexibility a bit more, are there opportunities for you to actually go and speak to people in the flexibility team?
yeah, that is one of the best things in regards to like working at Octopus. I would say the level of networking and the actual chances of you being able to speak to someone is really high. Like everyone there is really humble and they're really down to earth and they're really willing to, speak to you and give you any sort of advice and even grant you opportunities if there is like an opportunity um open for any like student that's willing to get it. So I would just say like if you do get into the position and you're looking forward to talking to someone, I would say speak to possibly your like supervisors or like your mentors to just be of like a mediator in regards to like pointing you to the right person if you basically get what I mean. But you can literally contact anyone, ask them any question that you have, and you definitely get the answer that you're looking for.
Thank you for that. I think another question that's always popped through is, what technical skills should I develop to be more competitive or to position myself better in the internship? And whilst I'm all for learn all the technical skills that will be relevant for your job and the industry, for example, if you're in data, you might want to learn Excel, stuff like that. I think what Octopus is really, really looking for is the soft skills, the curiosity, the resilience. They are willing, and I'm a testament for that. They are willing to invest into you all those technical skills. What would you say, David?
I would honestly I would agree because obviously when you're applying for a role, you have to have the skills related to that role. But Octopus kind of is looking for more than that because Octopus is more or less like a friendly of environment. Like I've heard it many times when I was working there that you would never really see a company like Octopus. So you more or less have to have those skills that kind of shows how much you're a team player. You're willing to, support everyone around you and also willing to, help people and not just grow yourself as well. So when they can see stuff like that in your personality, how willing you are to be there, how willing you are to talk to people around you, and also being career driven as well. I would say that this there are different values that they're looking for. So it's not just you being technically skilled or having a sound understanding of the role that you're applying to. So
Definitely,
personality
definitely.
matters.
Personality matters. And I just want to say just one last question for you. How would you explain your overall experience during the internship? Like from start to finish, the 8 weeks, for candidates looking to apply, how would you explain that?
I would simply say, for a person like myself, before I worked at Octopus, I hadn't really, I've not really worked in a company like that, like in a professional environment like that. So I would say it was really good and also was a environment where I felt like I grew in terms of every certain sector, like being able to get sales, talking to people, being part of teams, and organizing certain things in the office as well. So basically, there are many chances. That's what I'll say. Like for other people, there are major things that you're going to be able to get. For my experience, there was one of the placement students that created like how would I describe it, like an insight week, basically a conversation where student placement students can express themselves, and it's really because of that guy that the next placement students, which would probably be any one of you, would be just because of what he did. That's what you guys are going to be doing as well during the placement. So he brought in high value in terms of the activities that are going to be occurring during the placement. So there's really an high chance for you to basically bring in value to the company, bring in opinions, and also help yourself as much as you're helping the company. Yeah, so
Definitely, definitely. Another thing I wanted to mention is the internship is not any mock-up jobs that you guys are going to be working on. You're actually working on real life projects, like real life sites. I know during our internship, we actually went to a wind farm up in Manchester. So you're actually going to be seeing the realities and the actual work in which they do. So, like David said, you have so much opportunities and chance to actually learn so much, but also provide so much value. Thank you so much, David, for all of those insights. We'll bring in on our career coach today by the name Farah. Farah is a grad coach and she is amazing, guys. Amazing, amazing. She's been able to help other students get hired, get paid money. So you guys are here to get the real tea. Welcome, Farah. And yeah, we're gonna give it over to her now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Demi, and lovely to meet you as well, David, and everyone else that we've got on the call. A little disclaimer, I've literally lived on Zoom for 5 years now since COVID, and this is the first time I have struggled to get myself onto a Zoom call. So, my apologies for keeping you waiting, and thank you everyone for your patience. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, or you didn't come along perhaps to Tuesday night for a similar session, I'm Farah, also known as the grad coach. I used to be a hiring manager for almost 5 years. I was a grad myself who very quickly became a graduate employer and worked as a hiring manager. So I've hired well over 200 students and grads myself into part-time and full-time roles. But I must admit, I got a little bit sick of semi corporate life and I decided to go self employed. And so for almost 3 years now, I have been the grad coach. I do a ton of workshops and masterclasses. I've had almost, well, 2,000 of you come along to those live, which has been amazing. And I've worked personally with over 170 finalists and grads to get into a variety of roles, from the big four in consulting, the big five in banking, really heavy hitter corporate names, but also some really exciting startups, SMEs, and just companies that you would have never heard of, but are just as reputable, just as exciting a place to start your well-paid, inspiring grad career. So, what I thought I would do this evening, I will try and share my screen in a second, but I thought I would give my exclusive take on reading the job spec. Obviously, you've had David in the call this evening, you've got Demi as well to give really particular insights, but I thought I would share maybe my 3 things that I'm really taking away from this spec that I think are unique selling points about this opportunity. And we will come on to why I think USPs are so important. But yeah, let me just try share my screen. I'm hoping this is going to work. Me doing that. So just bear with me a second. Okay, awesome. I think my screen is now working. So let's go to... Here we are. Perfect. Can I just get a verbal yes if everyone can now see my screen?
Yes, we can, Farah.
Awesome.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant stuff. Okay. So a few things that I definitely am seeing as some USPs, and this might be a little bit of an overlap of what David was saying earlier. But number one, this seems to be a very mission-led organization. The fact that they're saying from the get-go that they want to have green energy affordable for everyone, and even here specifying that the CEO is spending time campaigning for cheaper, greener energy, I think is very, very meaningful. And I admit, even just from being on LinkedIn, I have seen, I can't remember exactly the CEO's name, so that's my bad, but I've seen him campaigning, I've seen him outside Parliament, I've seen him doing what he says he's going to do. He's walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So I think that's really meaningful for you coming in as an intern. How can you walk the walk, not just talk the talk? And how can you have that passion for the direction the company's going in, not just your day-to-day responsibilities? So that's the first thing I noticed. The second USP I want to highlight is how innovative, tech-focused, and future-facing Octopus clearly is. I thought it was very exciting to read about Octopus Go, Agile Octopus, not just as a hiring manager or a then hiring manager, but actually transparently as a customer of Octopus. I have their energy and been with them for a good couple of years. And I think that's very meaningful. So how can you connect to that and also showcase yourself as someone who's future thinking, bought into, fast change, innovation on behalf of customers? And that leads me nicely onto my third USP that I'm excited about to highlight, is the outrageously good customer service. They literally say it in their own words. We might as well use that language. It is evident how much they care about every single customer walking away and thinking, you know what, this is not just a bog standard energy provider. These are people that care, are bought into us, recognize the bigger picture of, the energy crisis and how they can help us that little bit with every interaction, every call that you might be on. So hopefully that helps just to have an outsider's perspective on what I think makes them special. And if you can tap into that and also share what makes you special, I think it could be a very compelling written application that you make. So what I'm going to now cover, folks, is the deadliest mistakes that I have seen over my years of not just as a hiring manager, but also as a graduate careers coach, making when it comes to written responses. Because obviously for this application, there isn't actually a CV to my knowledge. It is just a full cover letter where you're answering a series of 4 to 5 questions. But before I personally disclose my top 5 deadliest mistakes, I would actually really love to hear in the chat, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes? They can be ones that admittedly you have made before, because it's fine. We've all made these mistakes in the past and we learn and we grow, or just ones that you've heard from other sort of career experts or maybe on LinkedIn. But I'd be really curious to hear what you think. And actually, I don't know if I have access to the chat, but Demi, if you see any coming through, maybe you can let me know some. That would be great.
Yeah, so Pauline said written responses, spelling, grammar, CV on the CV and cover letters, spelling and grammar irrelevant to the question, long-winded answers, not using the SMART method, not reading the job description and relating skill set to the job, not showing the willingness to learn / knowing everything, using generic answers from other cover letters for other applications. Wow. not doing enough research about the company, pretending to be what the job description wants rather than applying your experience and skills to it. This is amazing. Over reliance on ChatGPT, AI, no clear motivations. Wow, another one. Great.
You're doing my job for me, everyone. Thank you so much. No, that's great. That's great to hear. And please, if you think of any more, please continue to share them. But thank you, Debbie. That's a really great starting point. And maybe this is an important point to highlight. Maybe we all do have a sense of what it actually does take to stand out and craft a killer written response. But maybe there's a separation sometimes between what we know we should do and what in practice we end up doing. And I get it, because from a graduate or a student perspective, this is perhaps not the only place you're applying to. And just by default of, I've got to do this 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 100 times, is it worth my time? But I definitely think for this particular internship, for this exciting opportunity, 1,000% yes. I want you to almost act as if this is the only thing you're going for. So put all your eggs in this basket, really give it your best shot. And yeah, without further ado, let me run through my 5 deadliest mistakes. But you're going to hear a lot of overlap actually with some of the things you've already mentioned. So great stuff. My number one mistake is what I would call a weak word count usage. So for this particular internship, they're inviting you to say in no more than 400 words why you fit the certain criteria with those sort of 4 to 5 questions. So I think graduates can fall into 2 camps. Either you end up going over the word limit, which we absolutely should never do. We always need to adhere to that. But even let's say there wasn't a word count, maybe you would go for a larger word count usage, but you would have a diluted argument. Maybe you could have said the same thing in half of the words. And what we want to do here is pack a punch. Every sentence, every word has a meaning and a reason to be there, because I promise you on the other side, when perhaps Demi, Stephen, or whoever else from the Octopus team is going to be reading it, they will thank you for it being a more concentrated argument. So that's the first thing I would say. Equally, on the other side, which could definitely happen for those of us in the room applying, you might undercook it. You might have significantly less than 400 words. And my advice is to really not waste that opportunity. Every sentence, every word that you have available to you is ammunition essentially to bolster your argument. So really try to get yourself as close as humanly possible to 400 words with the right conciseness and concentration to your argument. You'll be surprised. You can say a lot in 400 words, but we need to have that intention behind it. So that's the first one. Now, secondly, I would say overgeneralized information can be an absolute killer for the average graduate written response. And what I've done here, apologies if it's not super clear, I will read this aloud just for reference too. But we have 2 examples of grads saying the same point, but to very differing effects. And I see this a lot on graduate applications where, because perhaps you're sending a CV at the same time, there's an assumption that you don't need to repeat those really specific details about where you worked, what you did, what great results you got off the back of it, and maybe what skills you developed or demonstrated. But again, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a human hiring manager. You're not going to be reading one application. You're going to be talking at 20, 30, 40, 50 applications. And even if it's an amazing CV, you're just not going to remember those little details about every candidate. So make our lives easy, repeat the things that need to be repeated, and make your evidence and context clear. For example, this top one here is about 1/3 of the word count. Things like, during university, I completed a business project where I had to think creatively. Okay, I don't know what degree you did. Might be helpful to even signpost what uni you went to, maybe if you want to build a little bit of authority, but I don't think it's important for this particular application. But a business project and creative thinking is very, very broad. We need to nail that down and be a lot more specific. So a better example would read as follows. During my international marketing master's degree at UCL, I led a team of ex-students, fill that in accordingly, to craft a winning market access strategy for a simulated biotech SME. I received an 86% grade, in brackets, a high distinction, and notable feedback from lecturers for my rigorous competitive analysis, demonstrating strong creative problem solving. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't leave a lot up to the imagination. We are clearly laying out why this kind of story would matter. We're giving quantifiable results that build authority and credibility. And we're actually getting a bit of a context here. You know, the fact that it's a biotech SME. I kind of want to know that information. And who knows, maybe you've got a project at uni that directly crosses over with the type of sector or type of company that Octopus Energy is. That might actually be quite interesting, because if you've got that background information of a tech startup that specializes in energy, for example, that could be a really cool crossover. So food for thought. But definitely, if you have to explain it beyond what you've written on the written response, that's your opportunity to put it in the written response, because we're not going to read between the lines for you. You have to spell it out for us. Okay, so that's mistake number 2. We're going to move on to mistake number 3, which, bingo, so many of us already said, which is great. I'm really pleased this got raised. I'm going to call it unacceptable errors. This could be SPAG, so spelling, punctuation, and grammar, but it also could just be inaccurately applying for the application. And you'd be surprised the amount of times when I was hiring, and definitely I've heard things from clients where they're like, oh, Farah, I made this mistake. You're going to laugh at me, but this is what I did. It's fine. We can get over it. But things like not submitting the right CV, not listening to the criteria of submitting more than 400 words, putting things that are just sloppy or just show that you don't have that attention to detail. That is the saddest type of rejection that you could receive, because really in 2025, it sounds a bit brutal, but it is unacceptable. We can use things like Grammarly or other trusted AI platforms, or even just spell check on Google Docs or on Word, to make sure that we don't get it wrong. It's absolutely fine if English Lit wasn't your forte. It's not many people's. It's not about that, but it's just having the attention to detail and that sort of striving for excellence where you don't make excuses. So please leverage those, outsource it, leverage those things to help you. And one little top tip, make sure you select it to British English. The amount of times that I personally correct American English, and it's splitting hairs, but I just don't like it. I think if you're going for a British company, use British English and just have that finesse. So that's one thing that I would say. Now, in terms of how your writing actually comes across, obviously when it's a written response, there's a lot of room for interpretation. You could kind of write it in any way that you want to. So it's important to actually read your work back. And I know this seems maybe very obvious, but again, it doesn't seem to be in practice. But if you read your responses aloud, you will catch 99% of your own errors, like grammatical errors, because you will just hear for yourself, this doesn't make sense, or this doesn't quite sound right. But please be the one to do that, because rather than us discovering it as the hiring manager, where we're either reading it aloud or we're reading it in our heads like an internal narrative, and we pick up the sloppiness on your behalf. And again, when it's competitive, it could be for Octopus or it could be for any other company. When it's a human hiring manager having to split hairs between candidates, you could be identical to your competitor, but if they've got perfect SPAG, chances are they're going through and you're not. It's not particularly relevant to the role, but it's something that goes against you. So please don't let that be the case. Just get it right and, be an exceptionally accurate candidate. And I think one more thing I would say here, when it comes to sort of the writing style, is at university, you could have done a humanities subject, maybe even a science subject. And there's a certain way that I think academia encourages us to write. We want to sound academic and intelligent, and we tend to use either very technical language, scientific language, or just really soaring academic language. And it's very different in the world of business. So my advice, like I've put here, clear over clever. Speak in business terms, which is actually very simple, to the point English, not academic terms, where you're trying to show off with your intellect through choices of language. It seems counterintuitive, but I promise you, if you speak simply you make it easier for the person to understand, and then you're the one whose argument we're understanding better than your competitors. So yeah, they're my final thoughts on that. So SPAG, get it right, clear over clever, and triple check all those application requirements. I'm just going to take a little pause for a second here before we do mistake 4, 5, and then my final tips. Debbie, have we got any thoughts, questions, comments in the chat so far?
Yes, we've got loads of questions in the chat.
Oh,
The
okay.
first one is, what is the best cover letter format? Do you include addresses? Do you not include addresses? Kind of what is the best way to format as a cover letter?
Yeah, great. Yeah, we'll have a little hiatus and answer a few of these questions. That's great. So cover letters, my thoughts are, if it's an e-cover letter, i.e. you're not literally posting it, you don't need addresses. It just reads a little bit unnecessary. It's going to be in someone's inbox, not in their post box. And also, just from a privacy perspective, don't give over your exact email, like the actual addresses where you live. Maybe that's me being a little bit paranoid, but you never know. Just keep your data safe. So that's my thoughts on that one. In terms of structure, yes, I actually do, from just working with so many grads across sectors, I have a 4-point paragraph structure that I recommend. Happy to maybe send this along with the recording, and you can get this for free. That's no problem. But essentially, I have a quick intro and a quick outro to sort of bookend the cover letter. And the two big meaty pieces are your emotional argument and your logical argument. Emotional argument for me is, why them? Out of all other places you could choose to work, what is it about them that you're noticing is special and different? And why, therefore, do you want to work in a place like that? Why should you work in a place like that? Your logical argument is then, why you? Out of all other people they could possibly hire, what is it about you that makes you different and special? And here you're really going to highlight, I would say, your 3 biggest strengths relevant to the job spec, and you give us very, very clear context as to when you've done similar before and a great quantifiable result you've got before. Don't overthink the quantifiable results, by the way, everybody. It could be as simple as you working in McDonald's for 3 years and you regularly serving 300 plus daily customers while collaborating in a team of 12. That can be enough just to paint a picture of what you were up against and how fast-paced and adaptable you needed to be, irrespective of the context. So they're my thoughts on that one. Like I said, I'm happy to give the link to that. That's no problem. So you can read my full guide.
Thank you so much. For another question is, what if there's an anecdote that cannot be quantified with numbers?
Cannot be quantified with numbers, was that?
Yes.
I think every story can be quantified. It's like a personal challenge. If you see that it's possible, things can open up. I mean, for me, quantifiables can be as simple as numerical amounts. So how many people were you collaborating with? How many customers were you serving? Percentage increases or decrease, like as a result of that great emotional story, what practical results came off the back of that? Usually in business, we're chasing impacts and results. So usually there's something that we're chasing. So just see if there's something we can connect there. And the final one for me would be monetary amounts. So I get it. Sometimes it's not as obvious. And it depends in what context you're using it. We don't always need to have quantifiable numbers. Sometimes a powerful story can just be emotive and qualitative, but always challenge yourself to think, what numbers are hidden in this story?
Thank you so much, for another question, which me and David are kind of answered to in the chat, but I want to hear your opinion on this as well, is,
Sure.
are AI tools encouraged in the application process?
Yes, good question. I just want to recap, actually. I don't think it got mentioned in this particular spec, and it is debatable. Different companies have different opinions. I'm actually going to cover this as part of my future mistakes, so maybe actually we'll hold on to that one and we'll come back to it. But yes, it's a great question. We should be really honest and talk about this, because look, AI is here to stay. If we just have a blanket opinion of we should just never use it, I don't think that's realistic. But equally, we need to be strategic and not rule ourselves out because we've used it in a lazy way. So tell you what, let's pause the questions. We'll absolutely come back to the others. Very, very happy to continue on. But for now, let's have a look at mistake number 4, which we've got at the bottom here, which for me is, I would call, imprecise answers. And a few of you actually highlighted that in the chat, so that's amazing. essentially what I mean here is, are you answering the exact question that's been given? Or are you just answering what you want to have had asked you, or what you're assuming the question is? And I've actually brought an example from the Octopus spec itself, because I think it was question 4. The question is, how have you demonstrated love for customers to date? Now, again, this is maybe my arts and humanities brain kicking in here, where I love to analyze a good little piece of literature and just find meaning in things. But actually, we could unpack this quite reasonably. So, number one, they're not just saying, when have you showed customer service? When have you worked with a customer? They're challenging you to go big and say, when have you demonstrated? So this is an actual act of you working with customers, not just the bog standard thing, but where have you gone above and beyond to show a genuine love for customers? So we have to sort of meet them where they're at with that level of passion and intention behind their question. Like I say, it's not going to be enough to frame your question as just, yeah, I've worked with customers. Yeah, I've done customer service. Yeah, X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to say, how did you go above and beyond to show that you genuinely love customers? It was evident in your skills, your behaviors, the results that you got for them. And how can you really sell that love? Because this is kind of like an emotional question. It's not just logical. So think, almost to come back to that point we had earlier, quantifiable results are great, but you can think qualitatively as well. For example, having, a truly happy customer at the end of a phone because you did X, Y, and Z to resolve their specific complaint. There could be loads of qualitative things that come out of that as well, but go with emotion, because that's what the question is challenging you to do. But yeah, for future written responses, really, and for this one actually, really ask yourself, have I thoroughly understood the pain points of this question? Because often and this is for interviews as well, right? We don't just generally say, when have you worked in a team? It's things like, when have you worked in a new team when you had to build relationships quickly? There's always kind of a caveat or an extra detail that's included within that context that they want you to pick up on. So it's not just general teamwork. It's, okay, how did I have to work with a new team? How action-wise did I tend to that? And how did I build rapport with that new team specifically because they're new? So there we are. That's my mistake number 4. And for our grand total of number 5, oh, actually, oh my goodness me. Why won't it let me? Oh, here it is. It is here. Amazing. So to now go back to, the grand finale, let's say, of whether or not to use AI. For me, the 5th and final mistake is to rely on ChatGPT to provide you with generic answers. If anyone came along to Tuesday night, we had quite a rich discussion about AI and this sort of thing. But the problem with AI is that it is a median response from hundreds of thousands of people. So if you over rely on it, you're no longer special. You are literally the median person giving the most average response. And that's actually the exact opposite of what we want to achieve when we're trying to stand out as a candidate. We need our winning answers to be, number 1, genuine, number 2, individual, and number 3, actually specific to you. Because no one else can exactly say how you would say why you're passionate about working at a place like Octopus, why you would love to give outrageously good service to customers, why you would care about working for a tech-focused company. Yes, there'll be commonalities between you and the competitor next to you, but you are a data set of one, and there will be a unique edge that you're bringing to why you're interested in this opportunity. So especially for beyond education opportunities, they truly want to hear your genuine responses. So lean on that and run with it. And it will be far more exciting than just hearing a run-of-the-mill thing that we could have got ourselves from ChatGPT. And maybe like a practical thing that I can leave you with here is my best advice to make it sound more individual and genuine is think for yourself, what do I think the company's USPs are? I did that at the beginning, right? Again, I'm not special. You shouldn't put what I think on a pedestal. I'm just giving you my honest take as one person to another, what really stood out to me. I love the fact that the CEO's leading from the front, campaigning for great things. I love that they're obsessed with customers. I love that they've got one eye on the future. But for you, there could be other things that are really standing out to you. So whatever you think are their USPs, what makes them special and different, that's the first thing to identify. And then this can be hard, but it takes time. But really reflect on what makes me special and different. And think about things that maybe you think are inconvenient about your experiences. Maybe you're thinking, well, I want to go for, a customer related role, but I actually have quite a technical background. Maybe I did software engineering or I did computer science. That feels like it's really inconvenient. It's probably not very people facing. How can I make that something that does make me special and different? And there will be a connection. So long as you build a bridge between what makes you special and different and what you think makes them special and different and connect the dots, it makes for a really exciting read. It could be as simple as, because you're a computer science, like you're really like obsessed with that type of thing. Number one, you're going to really resonate with their tech future that they're sort of innovating, but maybe you'll have an incredibly analytical mindset where you can figure out quickly the trends that are impacting customers, and you can connect the dots and innovate a new way to deal with a whole new different complaint that you notice like the last 10 people on your calls had as an issue. Whereas someone who's maybe more creative just doesn't spot that so immediately. So whatever it is, just know that you can always build a bridge and make an argument for why your USPs fit beautifully with their USPs. And that's why I don't think chat's ever really going to give that to you. Not yet, anyway. We'll see. We'll see how things go. So yeah, they are my final thoughts on the 5 big mistakes. But just before we go over to Q&A, I just wanted to leave you with some final thoughts on what I think makes a standout written response. I'll quickly run through because obviously you can see on the screen, but number one, structure is king. So think about how you can make your writing and the argument that you're laying out very clear and obvious. My go-tos for this would be what I call signposting sentences, where you sort of set up what you're about to say. I'm a big fan of the power of 3. So 3 specific skills that you're bringing to the table, or 3 key things that you love about the company. And if the word count allows, maybe having a short summarizing sentence. So in summary, X, Y, and Z is what I will be bringing to the table. But of course, play around with your word count. That could be cut. Secondly, is whenever you're making a claim about yourself, try to substantiate it. Anyone can say, I'm great with people, I'm creative, etc., etc. Not everyone will evidence that. So get in the habit of looking at your CV. Hopefully your CV's got some beautiful quantifiable results there and some great evidence. Quote it. Just say, like, as evidenced by my time as X, where I achieved Y, for example. Number 3, like I said, get in the habit of asserting yourself. This is your mission. You need to convince us and lay out an argument as to why it should be you, why we want it to be you. So like the emotional and logical argument for hiring you. So don't be afraid to use things like powerful action verbs, quantifiable results, claim those achievements and those strengths. Don't feel like you have to sort of tiptoe around the tulips. I think that's the phrase. Don't feel like you have to go around it. Just say what you know you're great at and own it, and we will appreciate it because it will be more concise and it will be actually compelling to read. The final 2 is, I would say, have an impassioned tone of voice, because at the end of the day, and this is so evident, right, with Octopus, people buy from people, not generic robots. Not yet, anyway. Who knows? We've got AI agents on the rise and they're getting more human. But for now, I'm going to say people buy from people. But this is what I notice a lot, not just in written applications, actually, but interviews. Grads feel the pressure to have a cold professional vibe with how they answer questions, but actually you want to do the opposite. You want to have a warm professional tone where you do say things that, I would love to work here and here's why. I'm really interested in this. Like, allow your passion to actually be reflected in your choice of words, and definitely if it's interviewed, the way you say it as well. And I promise you it will be a pleasure to read. So don't hold back. And then the final thing, of course, is make sure that brief is constantly attended to. So whatever those questions are, stay really close to them, really true to them. You don't need to go on any tangents because they're laying out really clearly exactly what they want from you. So long as you stick to that, it will be a really, really wonderful written response. So there we are, folks. If you want, by the way, the link to this, just so you've got it all in one place, you're very welcome to have that as the link as well. Let me just unshare my screen and come back to you all. But yes, would love to take any more questions.
Thank you so much, Farah. I think that last bit was very, very important. I just noted it down and I just kind of paraphrased it. Structure, quantifiable data, assertion, passion, and a good attention to detail. And I think those things, out of everything, is what we need to actually show in those cover letters. Thank you so much, Farah. Guys, if you have any other questions, this is the time to drop them in the chat. We have a couple that were submitted, so I'm gonna start to ask that. We start off with those ones first, and then go off to the chat as well. So I know this was asked in the other session as well, but it's not important in this session. But what would you say in conjunction to either one-page CV or two-page CV?
Yeah, sure thing. So I would say it doesn't, unless you're going for a high finance role like investment banking, private equity, venture capital, that sort of jazz, or a very high-end consulting firm, 1 to 2 pages is fine. The rule of thumb here is there's no arbitrary meaning to it. So long as you're giving enough high quality relevant information, we actually don't care if it's 1.25, 1.5, 2 pages, but just no more than 2 pages. It's about, is it giving us what we need, not does it just fit an arbitrary 1 or 2 page structure.
Thank you so much for that. Another question is, where can I access the recording for yesterday's meeting? That will be online by tomorrow. So if you're in the newsletter, you'll be the first person to get first dibs on where everything is. Could you briefly mention what you stated on using your CV and show an example? As evidence, I've done. Okay, could you briefly mention what you stated on using your CV and show an example of, as evidence, I've done a certain thing over time? I don't understand the question.
Yeah, no, I think I follow, so that's all
Okay.
good. So basically, this is acting on the assumption that your CV has lots of great quantifiable results. But if you're in the category where you're thinking, oh, actually, I probably should add more quantifiable results, and that's fine. That's something to also have a think about. Again, it could just be as simple as, you know, like for example, I've got here, I'm just looking at an example CV from my collection. It could be about you being a society president at university, and you're talking about how you achieved like record-breaking membership numbers of over 250 students, or maybe it was like a 60% increase from the previous year. Again, I'm very, very pro tell your stories and examples through the power of numbers. So I think there's always an opportunity to find numbers in it. But yeah, what I meant then is, assuming you've got that on your CV, don't just assume that we're going to cross-reference and constantly be like, oh, that, you know, you kind of mentioned that. Oh, I guess that relates to the CV. Like, we're not going to do that. You have to spell it out for us in that particular document. So just give us all the information and it will make our life a lot easier.
Another question is, what is the guidance on the professional summaries on CVs? I know you mentioned this as well last time as well.
Yeah, look, there's loads of different information out there about personal statements, professional summaries. Personally, I have a template, which again, I'm happy to just share with you all in the follow-up email. That's no worries. But the reason why I have a particular template is because I want it to act like a micro version of a cover letter. And I mean micro when I say that, like 3 to 4 sentences that is tailored to the specific role and company you're applying to. I'm not generally a fan for at a graduate level. I'm not a fan of a generic personal statement because I think like we just don't have enough yet to sort of say. But if we can tailor it to the company, you know, what they're hoping to achieve, what you feel you're bringing to the table, then I think that's a good personal statement. But yeah, like I said, I'm happy to give that little mini template and just send it through.
Thank you so much for that, Farah. Another question is, with more technical roles AI engineering, I've been told that showing your projects is more attractive. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've worked with a number of engineers or like aspiring software engineers that are now working in the field, and we have done that strategically. So on my version of a CV, I have something called industry relevant experience, but this could be quite up for interpretation. So instead, you could have a section that's industry relevant projects. And I've had that before. The latest engineer I worked with, she had three different projects that really sort of showcased her abilities within mechanical engineering, which is now what she works in. So yeah, 100%. I think if you've done such a rigorous technical degree, absolutely milk it and make it worth its money because you've spent a lot of time on it. I think it's more where you have a degree where it's not as transferable that you might want to lean on other things, but definitely use it and make the most of them.
Can you put a link to your LinkedIn or GitHub or on a portfolio in your cover letter?
Oh, yeah, good question. So I definitely would for your CV. And my advice is whatever you have as your lovely little format for the top of your CV, just copy and paste it over to the cover letter. I think it gives nice continuity. It makes it look quite smart and professional. So yeah, you could have your LinkedIn profile hyperlink, you could have your GitHub, a marketing portfolio, however you're presenting that. Could be Canva, could be something else. So yeah, why not? Make it very, very obvious and accessible.
Another question is, would it be wise to talk to Octopus employees on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I mean, obviously you've all done a wonderful job of coming along live today. You've kind of indirectly networked with David. Demi's, shared her expertise as well. So you can leverage that. You can literally name drop or fact drop that in your cover letter to justify why you want to work here or why you should work here. But yeah, you could obviously go a step further and network with other people in Octopus because then you'll have something that maybe everyone even in this room won't be able to say. I definitely think when you get to interview stages, that's when that can be very, very useful because one, from a logical level, they might just even remember some of the questions they got, and you can sort of share advice about that. But also just to get under the skin of what is it really like in this role? What are the challenges I'm going to face? What does excellent look like in this role? If you can reverse engineer that stuff and ask some great questions, then yeah, that could be huge for nailing interviews.
Right. In addition to the template that Farah mentioned as well, at Beyond Education, we also have a career suite, which we have basically a collation of CVs that have been approved and have gotten internships. So if you go to the link that I just put in the chat and you sign up, you get a collation of different CVs and cover letters that have been through the application process, have gotten internships. So you guys can actually use that as a template as well. But Farah's old template will also be included in the follow-up email. Another question, Farah, is regarding the engineering applications, is it worth mentioning projects if it isn't directly relevant to the role?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, I don't feel free to confirm in the chat what type of engineering background you have. But yeah, like obviously you might be going for a process engineering role, mechanical, electric. It might be like a generic one. I would say have a roster of maybe 5 to 6 projects that you can just then drop into your tailored CV to best match what that type of role's looking for, what sort of projects you think you'll be exposed to if you're working there. Obviously, sometimes you just don't know, right? And that in that case, just put your best 3, like your most powerful 3, where you've got good results and you think they sort of have the most technical rigor to them. But yeah, absolutely. I think you should have a few that you can swap in and out to make it as tailored as possible.
Thank you so much for that. Another question that I saw was, um, how would you show your project or describe it in the cover letters, or kind of what is the process of you describing the project and obviously how best to present it?
Yeah, it depends obviously on what type of application we're going for. I mean, one thing I did want to caveat is that I'll gladly send my killer cover letters guide. But for this particular application, it's not a traditional cover letter because they're saying here are 4 or 5 questions you definitely need to answer. So you can literally just be like, "Dear Octopus team," go straight into your bits and then just sign off. But yeah, if it's sort of a traditional cover letter where it's a bit more open and that sort of thing, I think Actually, sorry, just can you repeat the question one more time, Demi? I just want to make sure I'm answering it perfectly.
Yeah, so the question is about writing about projects. How is the
Oh,
best way
yes.
to describe it?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to double check. So I think it will end up going in your logical argument. And the way I frame this is I say, like, you know, I will make a lasting impression in this role by bringing my top 3 skills in X, Y, and Z. And then what you want to do is for each of those strengths that you've introduced at the beginning, unpack them. So you might say, firstly, I have demonstrated exceptional, I don't know, analytical thinking as evidenced by my recent project in this degree, specializing in this field, whatever it is. And then it's almost like a mini STAR method or mini Carl method. I'm a fan of the Carl method, but that can be for another day. That'll be for interviews, right? But you just want to very succinctly unpack what was the project, what did you do in the project, and what great results did you get off the back of it. But it doesn't have to be long. That can literally be one sentence where you're just saying, during this project, I specialized in this, and as a result of doing X, Y, and Z, I achieved this result. So play around with it. What you'll often find is, and again, when you read the Killer Cover Letters Guide, you'll literally see some examples of this as well. But you can sort of get into the rhythm of using similar sentences and frameworks, but you just drop in the relevant information, and that's absolutely fine. I'm all pro using templates, so long as we're tailoring the templates well.
Definitely, guys. That is another question. That is like a fantastic answer to the question, I would say. Yeah, someone did mention the Carl method as well in the
Okay.
chat earlier on. I think that's all the questions we have. Any more questions, guys? I would say for David and for Farah, any last minute like top tips? I know you've mentioned the top 5 already, Farah, but for David on your side, what are like the top 3 tips you would say going into this application process? What should we have at the forefront of our minds? And then I'll go to you, Farah, and then we'll end the session.
Um, so some top tips that I can give. I would say if you can show as a person applying for a specific role how much of a team player you can be. Like I know we say like the conversation of, oh yeah, being a team player and saying like how I do this, how I'm gonna do that, but showing like simple things as much as like the littlest thing is like, okay, I'm really good at documentation. So sometimes when people like in specific roles, they like to look at the top thing you can do in the company. They like to look at, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be the person to carry out the biggest role. But more or less, your manager is looking for the person to do the little stuff because they know when you're there, you're not going to be able to do the major stuff yet because if you're going to have to carry out certain training. So if you can tell them how much you are willing to do the little stuff and then build yourself up and then take advice and then be a good team player. I would say this is something that like a manager or like a person is willing to apply you is looking at you and thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a very valuable addition to the company. I would say don't come in thinking you're the biggest person in the role. Come in willing to learn and willing to participate and willing to develop yourself and also the company and also take off stress from the people that are already there. So honestly, that's the one thing that I think is really important in terms of applying to certain roles. So
Say that's a fantastic addition to that. Like, honestly, come in thinking, how can I provide value to my team? And it's in this little thing, to be honest. Thank you so much for that, David. Farah?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to David's comment. This is the power of networking and coming along to these insight sessions because that's something that's not exclusively on the spec, but
Yeah.
it's so integral to succeeding. So that's just such a gem that David has shared, and it makes complete sense why that's so valuable. Because if you can come in and be like, how can I make the people around me's lives easier? You're going to be great, and they're going to definitely want to keep you on. I think my final thing, I sort of say this a lot online, but it's a great way to end, is that it's never the best candidate that gets hired. It is always the best communicator. And what I want to encourage you to think about is try to erase from your own memory who you are and what you've done. And when you start putting pen to paper or pen to Google Doc or whatever, really try to remember that this person is seeing you for the first time and the only time. So don't scrimp on the details, give that lovely context, really paint a picture of who you are and what you have to offer, because we get caught in our own heads and we forget that we already have this context, but nobody else knows that. So really spell it out for us, leave no stone unturned. And I just wish you every success with your applications. I think this is a great opportunity, and I know there'll be great people in this call who would be absolutely perfect for this. So go for it.
Thank you so much for that, Farah. Joshua, in regards to your question in the chat, I think take bits of what Farah has said in terms of like having your name, the headers, the LinkedIn links, but definitely just go into answering the questions directly, like she mentioned, and because there is specific questions put on the in the description that they want you to answer. In regards to my top tip, I would say don't count yourself out. I definitely think when you see the CV and when you see sorry the job description and you're reading and you're really questioning yourself and you're thinking, can I actually do I have these skills? Do I have all these things they're mentioning about? You have them. You just haven't sat down, like Farah said, put pen to paper and actually connect the dots and see where you've done these skills. So I definitely say do not ever, ever, ever ever, like I say, guys, ever count yourself out. When I applied, I had no knowledge about what the energy industry was about. No knowledge what it was about, but I applied. I put pen to paper, I found the dots that connected, and I put my best foot forward. Farah said, this is the one and only time they're ever gonna see you. Do not skimp on the context, do not skimp on the content, and just put yourself forward. If there's not any other questions, thank you so much for a fantastic session. Let's say a big thank you to Farah and David for joining us today, guys. Thank you so much, Farah and David,
Thank you for having me.
for another session. And yes, we'll be seeing you guys in the interview session that's happening in a couple of weeks. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for taking your time to actually invest in your future. And I hope to see you soon, guys. Bye.